Welcome to Take Off Your Shoes. My name is Reverend Marie Duquette. I'm an ordained minister in the Lutheran tradition, and I believe that where my story, your story, and God's story meet, there is holy ground. The Holy Gospel according to John, the 8th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Then Jesus said to the Judeans who had believed in him, "If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." They answered him, "We are descendants of Abraham and have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean by saying you will be made free?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not have a permanent place in the household. The Son has a place there forever. So if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed." This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. My friend Elizabeth, a friend and colleague, tells this story. Throughout her childhood and well into her 20s, she knew Dimetrodon was a dinosaur, because in all the sets of dinosaurs she got as a kid, and all the books they read about dinosaurs, there was a Dimetrodon, which was great because of its sail and everything. In fact, she even had a purple stuffed Dimetrodon, which was the best Dimetrodon ever, since purple was her favorite color. What? You can't picture a Dimetrodon?
Show us what a Dimetrodon looks like.
This is what Dimetrodon looks like. And don't think we weren't marching up and down the stairs at the home this morning. All right, so you can understand now why she thought it was a dinosaur. She grew up and met Matt, whom she eventually married. And he was an actual paleontologist, studied bones and fossils that tell you about bones. And Matt told her the truth. He told her, "You're wrong. A Dimetrodon isn't a dinosaur. It's what's called a stem mammal, and it's more closely related to us humans than it is to any of the actual dinosaurs." She was shocked. Shocked, I tell you, as you can imagine you would be if you found out that something you believed so much, that you had a purple stuffed mascot to support your belief, was 100% totally wrong. Matt now teaches paleontology at the University of Michigan, and he tells this same story in his course called Dinosaurs and Other Failures, because it illustrates why it's important to look at the bones of a thing, to take it apart and put it back together and find out exactly what it is. Because once you know the truth about what it is, you can start to figure out what it does. And that's important because it's easy to get confused. If Dimetrodon looks like a dinosaur, but Dimetrodon isn't a dinosaur, it makes you think, well, what else might I be wrong about? There's this feeling of disorientation when you find out that what you thought was true actually isn't. And that feeling can be scary depending on what the truth is and what foundations you've been standing on are being shaken. A lot of Christians grow up in churches that tell them that faith is transactional. They're taught that they have to do certain things and be a certain way in order to be saved, in order to earn God's love and favor. A lot of people grow up being told that women can't lead in churches, or that people who identify as LGBTQIA+ can't live into their full identities and still be faithful, and heavens know they can never change their name. Or that bad things that may have happened to them are somehow God's punishment for a thing they must have done wrong. Or that God lives on a cloud with a scorecard keeping track of every single lie or half-truth or rule break, or that God might forgive, but God never forgets. And this image of God is so ubiquitous that you can find it everywhere in American pop culture and in churches that are filled with people who absolutely believe what Jesus never said. These depictions of church and religious life are often the kind that CNN and other media outlets need when they call in a pastor to speak to all Christians on some important topic. And that's easy for them to find because this version of Christianity is everywhere. It's like the air we breathe. And sometimes we start to believe it too, even if we're supposed to know better. We start to think that we can make the rules or that we can somehow get God to love us more if only we do better. But that's not God's truth. The truth that sets us free is the truth that caused Martin Luther to drop to his knees in a castle in humility and joy when he understood that we are justified by grace through faith apart from works, apart from what we do. We cannot earn God's love because it's already freely given. When Jesus tells us, "Love one another as I have loved you," he is telling us exactly who he is, and he backs it up by what he does. That our human distinctions and our cultural norms that keep us comfortable and help us decide who is in or out don't actually mean anything to God is mind-blowing. Even for those of us who have heard the truth our whole lives, so much so that we can be tempted to stick with what we thought was true. Even when we learn the actual truth that sets us free from limiting beliefs that keep us imprisoned, shackled to the past, instead of living in the now and living into the future with a never say die outlook, that goodness is stronger than evil. When pop culture, mass media, and other denominations try to reinforce that God is up there pitching the ultimate World Series, hoping to strike each of us out, it can be rattling to find out or just remember that actually God is in the cheap seats with us. God is standing and cheering for every exciting moment in our game. God is weeping at the mere mention of the word freedom in not just our national anthem, but in Canada's and France's and Ukraine's and every country, even those whose anthems have no words, because God does not limit God's love to people in a single category or people who speak a specific language. God braces with and weeps with, God rises with and cheers with all living things. And that truth also sets us free to pray and to lament. We're free to give more to food pantries when systems that kept their shelves full and their people fed fail. We are free to live in the trembling space between the world's trauma and God's promises. We're free to let go of ancestral ties and traditions that limit our thinking about what we can or cannot do. We're free to use our building and our resources to offer others life abundantly. We're free to let the unhoused sleep on our pews. We're free to go to Jesus when we are weary and heavy burdened and rest. We're free to say the creeds even when we don't fully understand or believe every word. We're free to declare the expansiveness of God's love that includes immigrants, LGBTQIA plus people, people whose skin is darker or lighter than our own. We're free to speak for those who have no voice. We're free to doubt, to plead, to shout into the abyss, using expletives when life is really scary. We're free to sing, even when, especially when our voices break from the beauty and the depths of the song. We're free to trust the truth that nothing can ever separate us from the love of God. Wise people understand that the more you know you don't know. But we know this: God loves us. And that truth sets us free to live lives of love and grace, knowing that God's love, which shines through every one of us, is big enough to set the whole world free. Thank you for listening to Take Off Your Shoes. Let me send you out now with this blessing. May God give you the grace never to sell yourself short, grace to risk something big for something good, and grace to remember the world is now too dangerous for anything but the truth and too small for anything but love.